Listen carefully, because once you understand this, you'll never look at disaster videos, blackout warnings, or sudden collapse headlines the same way again. Collapses don't start with explosions, riots, or even the power going out. They start with something much smaller, something quiet, something so ordinary you don't even notice it at first. And by the time you do, the chain reaction has already started. That's the hidden domino effect nobody talks about because it doesn't feel like danger. It feels like inconvenience. But inconvenience is exactly how collapse sneaks in and takes the first tile down. Here's the first uncomfortable truth. Almost every major failure in human systems, power grids, cities, supply chains, starts from one tiny point of pressure. A fuse that runs a little hotter than usual. A server that hiccups for 2 seconds. A tower that loses one relay. A mistaken assumption made by a tired operator. None of these sound dramatic. Yet each one is a domino. And the moment it tips, everything connected to it leans just a little off balance. Not enough to alarm anyone, but enough that the next tile becomes vulnerable. And the moment you have 2 tiles leaning, the third doesn't stand a chance. That's why collapses often feel sudden, even though they've been building for years. The systems around you, transport, power, medicine, communication, aren't fragile on the outside. They're fragile on the inside. Think of a city as a giant, invisible circuit board. Every part depends on another part, working at the exact right time, in the exact right sequence. And the moment one thing slips out of rhythm, the board doesn't fry instantly. It stutters, it hesitates, it staggers. That stagger is the first domino. And most people ignore it because it doesn't scream danger. It whispers it. Imagine you're sitting at home. Power flickers for 2 seconds. You shrug. The grid is designed to self-correct, right? And it usually does, unless multiple correction systems activate at the same moment. When that happens, the grid starts chasing its own tail, pulling power from one region, weakening another, forcing backup stations to step in, overloading them, and pushing more stress into the system. That's the second domino. And this time, even the engineers can't stop it. Because once a system enters what's called a cascading failure state, every backup becomes another stress point instead of a safety net. That's how Northeast blackouts, telecom crashes, and even banking meltdowns happen. Not from one big disaster, but from dozens of tiny ones linking arms. And here's where the human part of the domino effect kicks in. Systems fail quietly. People fail loudly. When the first domino falls in a human environment, it triggers confusion. When the second falls, it triggers doubt. But when the third falls, it triggers behavior. Real collapse isn't mechanical. It's psychological. When the average person sees the first sign of failure, they assume somebody else will fix it. When they see the second sign, they get annoyed. When they see the third, they panic. And panic is the fuel that accelerates the chain reaction faster than any electrical surge ever could. Let me give you an example. Supermarkets. You'd think empty shelves happen because supply stops, but the real cause is demand spikes. The moment a few people panic buy, others see empty aisles and join in. Suddenly, a small disruption looks like a crisis. That visual trigger, that, wait, why is the bread gone? Moment is a psychological domino. And once it falls, you can't reverse it with a press conference. You can't calm people down by telling them everything's fine. The missing bread is proof it isn't, so they buy more. Others see them buying, and boom, panic amplifies itself. Humans copy crisis behavior faster than any virus spreads. Now let's talk about something most people don't realize. Every collapse has a critical minute, a moment when the system still could be saved, but won't be because the number of falling dominoes exceeds the number of hands available to stop them. In grid failures, that minute happens when automatic protection systems start switching entire sections offline to protect themselves. In logistics collapses, it happens when the rate of incoming demand exceeds the rate of scheduled delivery by just a few percent. In civil unrest, it happens when communication channels get overwhelmed and information turns into noise. The system is technically still running, but it's no longer recoverable. It's just waiting for gravity to finish its work. And here's the part most people underestimate. You are a domino too. Your decisions, your reactions, your assumptions, they all feed into the chain. When the power dies, your first instinct might be to check your phone. It works for 5 minutes. Then the network slows. Then it drops. That's 2 dominoes. Communications down, coordination gone. Now everyone reacts individually instead of collectively. And individual reactions rarely sync. Some try to leave the city. Some stay frozen. Some call relatives. Some run to ATMs. Each of these choices feeds the next domino. Traffic jams, overloaded roads, empty ATMs, strained fuel supplies. Each of these failures triggers more failures. But the people who survive collapses really survive them, do something different. They recognize the first domino early, not because they're paranoid, but because they understand that the moment a system stops behaving normally, the game has already changed. They don't wait for confirmation. They don't wait for official announcements. They don't wait for everyone else to panic to prove they're right. They react at the first sign of instability, and that head start gives them time, space, and options, 3 things that vanish once the chain reaction fully activates. This section is based on practical field survival experience, rather than formal academic sources. There's a reason disaster manuals emphasize redundancy. Redundancy isn't about having more things. It's about controlling your dominoes. If you have 2 ways to get water, 2 ways to get light, 2 ways to get information, you break the chain. You stop the cascade. You become the stable point in a system falling apart. And stability is contagious. Just like panic spreads, calm does too, but only when you have the tools to hold your ground. The real trick is spotting the discord moment. The tiny detail that tells you the first domino has tipped. It could be a fluctuation in voltage, a sudden shortage of something that's always there, a message from a friend about network issues, an unusually silent street, a rumor that spreads faster than facts. If you learn to recognize those little imbalances, you'll always be ahead of the collapse curve. And once you're ahead, the chain reaction can't catch you, because while everyone else is reacting to falling dominoes, you're stepping away from the table entirely. Here's the final truth. Collapses aren't events. They're patterns. And once you learn the pattern, you don't just survive, you become the person who never gets caught in the chain to begin with. The domino effect doesn't care who you are, but you should care about where you're standing when the first tile moves. Please stay connected, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment to Psych Logic Dose.